Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. On every episode, Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Welcome back to another edition of Clarity from Chaos. I'm your host, Dave Campbell. Here at Clarity, we work ridiculously hard on trying to bring clarity to the chaos that surrounds you every day. And we have somebody with us tonight that spends a lot of time sorting through the chaos to bring you clarity. She is an expert in the realm of media communications and the host of The Amber May Show. She is also the creator of an online education program, Podcast Like a Pro. Welcome to the show, Amber.
David, I am so excited to be here with you on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're really, really welcome. So let's start out with the rise of podcasting,
Sure.
because I think it's a phenomenon people are starting to embrace, but I don't think from a growth standpoint it's anywhere near where it's going to end up being.
Right. I agree with you.
I think because if I can do it, my God, anybody can, right? and you know, even my tiny itty bitty audience, anybody can do it. And so, give a little bit of background around it, since you do education around building and creating podcasts. You're the perfect person to ask.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why podcasts?
It's where the media is going now. If you think about the progression of media, how we used to have predominantly newspapers as our form of news, and then you got radio, and then after radio, you got television. I mean, radio is still a thing. Everyone likes to listen to AM talk radio. You got the Rush Limbaugh, right? Everyone loved Rush Limbaugh. So you went, but to be fair, I mean, when cable news came in and television, people liked going home and watching the 5 o'clock news. And that's where you
Right.
got your information. And they have had the dominance. They've been able, the gatekeepers have been able to control all what we learn, what we hear, what we understand, how they manipulate us. They've been able to control the narrative for so long. It's been
Right.
the hands of a few. There's 6 corporations in America that control all the media that we see. We have the illusion of choice because we have the cable news, we have satellite radio, we have all kinds of channels we can tune into. But the truth of the matter is only 6 corporations control all the media. And the
Right.
wonderful thing about the iPod, which I don't know that they saw coming, when iPod came out in early 2000s, was it was the first time everyday people were going to be able to have control and create content. And I don't think all the gatekeepers realized what that was going to turn into. When I interned at Fox 10 with Carrie Lake, because I went to journalism school, and in journalism school you have to intern. So I did 2 semesters at Fox 10. And back then, back when I was interning, there was no way to really do a show. You had to have a lot of equipment,
Right.
and the equipment was rather large. I mean, back then we were doing beta tape to beta tape editing. Digital editing was just starting to become a thing. So all the news stations around the country were still doing beta tape to beta tape. And then now, like, everyone's digital editing now. Now our cell phones have better cameras than our regular cameras do, because, back then, if you wanted to do a show, you had to have a nice camera, and that was very expensive. And then you had to have expensive, editing software. So even in the early 2000s, it was really difficult for people to do a broadcast like you're doing today. Audio broadcast was the easiest form to do it, because all you had to do was get like some kind of recording software and a microphone, and you could do it. But even then, to get guests like we're doing now was difficult, because I was in the radio business. So upon graduating, I got into AM radio. And back
Which
then we had
station?
to have, I was on 10:10 a.m. and 12:80 a.m. We had 2
Because I
stations.
started out with KFNIX or KFNX.
That was our rival.
Yeah, I did a show at 7 o'clock on Monday nights with KFNX.
Yep, they were our rival. We competed with KFNX.
Yeah.
So I am very familiar with KFNX. That is so funny. But back then, you had to have an ISDN line. I think that's what it was called. It was
Right.
a
Yep.
a high dedicated phone line.
Yeah,
Very
because that
expensive.
was high speed back then. Yeah.
Yes. And to do that on a podcast back then, you'd have to pay thousands of dollars to get one of those in. But so nowadays, now that technology has changed so quickly, you and I are in different states right now. Back in the day, we were in the same state. We didn't know that. But,
Right.
now we're in different states. It's easier for us to do interviews, not just nationwide, but worldwide. Now
Yeah.
the editing software is a lot easier. The recording software, the cameras aren't this honking thing on your shoulder that needed that, the camera guy from the news station. Like everything's evolved so fast. And I don't think mainstream media saw it coming.
No, I don't think so either. And I don't think based on they continue to use the shovel and dig the hole because they've gone through this huge credibility crisis and they continue with it. And for some reason, authenticity and just being truthful with the audience
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to be in their wheelhouse anywhere at all. I know Carrie left, Fox 10 for that very reason because she was tired of being told to manipulate, the people she was talking to. And then you hear even Fox, cable Fox, they're all doing a certain amount of manipulation. And
Oh,
like you said,
Mm-hmm.
I actually think Fox, now that Murdoch has handed off the reins to the more liberal Sun, I look for it to start going from right leaning to the middle of the road, probably, and then to left leaning in the not too distant future.
I agree with you 100%.
I see Sean Hannity and Laura and all the rest of them going down the podcast road, just like Bill O'Reilly, because that's the only way they're going to be able to get their views out there.
Tucker, Megyn Kelly, same thing.
Yep.
Glenn Beck.
Well, that's it. Yeah, Glenn Beck. That's what they all have done, and I think that's what's coming. I think you're going to see a boneyard of legacy media in the not too distant future because of their superiority complex, I guess, for lack of a better term.
You hit the nail on the head perfectly with Fox Cable, because yes, they tend to give the illusion that they're right-leaning. And I
Yeah.
guess they give more right-leaning commentary than any other station, traditional
Yeah, but
legacy
that's-
media.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare, you wouldn't have to move the needle much
Yeah.
if you compare them against MSNBC or
Right.
CNN. I
I'll
mean,
give
for
you an
God's
example.
sake.
I'll give you an example. So they did one whole day of nothing but Kamala Harris. Nothing but Kamala Harris. Now they were trash talking her on the show, on every show, but it was all dedicated. No one was talking about anything else but Kamala Harris. So that was all that was on your brain was Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris. And they
Right.
trick you into thinking that we're doing this because we're talking against all her policies. They're not talking about anything else from the right. They were just
Right.
highlighting Kamala Harris one day.
Right.
And I was just like, that's pretty damn good propaganda. Because they're not talking about Donald Trump. They're not talking about all the things he wants to do. They're not
Nope.
talking about the world news and what's going on or what's going on in U.S. news. It was all focused this one particular day when I tuned in to Kamala Harris. I was like,
Right.
one show after another. I'm like, give me a freaking break. Are you not seeing through this?
Well,
Really?
And I'll give you another good example. The demise of the Democrat Party since President Trump was elected on November 5th. All Fox News has done day in and day out is point out how screwed up the Democrats are and what they should do to fix it. And I'm sitting there going, why are you trying to tell them how to fix this? Why don't you just let them crash the plane into the mountain? And so we can fix the last 12 to 16 years of crap that the Democrats have imposed on us. But show after show after show, you cannot turn on Fox Cable and not hear something about Well, the latest bit was Schumer and the continuing resolution.
Mm-hmm.
But all they do is talk about how dumb the Democrats are.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that, why don't they talk about all the great stuff that's going on, right? They could fill an entire news hour with all the good stuff that's happening. You know, Trump with Putin was on a 2-hour call today, for God's sake. That's worth at least 30 minutes of news.
Yes.
Musk went out and rescued the 2 astronauts from the space station. That's good for another 30 minutes. And, you know, fortunately, I got to watch a little bit of the splashdown and stuff like that.
I did too.
But, you know, but then, you know, you turn on Laura and it's first 15 minutes is her interviewing Trump and fighting the judicial activists. Well, that's what, impeachment was put into the Constitution as a remedy.
Yes.
For these AHs. And that's all they're doing. They're using the Constitution as it's written to resolve an issue. And now they're imposing citizenship and all of this stuff on people that aren't even American citizens. So it baffles me. And I'm going the long way around here, Amber, so forgive me. But it goes back to they're quasi right leaning, but they're really not.
Right.
They're
That's what I tell all the Democrats that don't like my posts on Facebook. They're like, oh, it's Fox. I said, you do realize it's owned by Democrats, right? You do realize it's not super ultra conservative, right? They will refuse to watch it because they think it's right leaning. If they would just watch it, they would realize they might actually like it a little bit more than they think. And I'm like, it's owned by your own, like someone in your own party owns it. Yep. So why wouldn't you watch Fox? Like,
it's just amazing. And further back to your point about 6 people that own, and we're not just talking about legacy media. We're talking about all media in this country, all of it. Movies, radio,
magazines,
newspapers. And it goes on and on. You have 6 people, 6 out of 300 million or so, that control the manipulation of media on the public.
Yep. And that's why they're freaking out about, I don't know if you're religious, but I believe in God, and I saw God's handiwork in the last 4 years as he was I was part of the Reawaken America tour with Clay Clark and General Flynn, and God just like brought us all together as a tour, as podcasters, and all of us influencers, no matter if you're small or if you're mega. We made a big shift in America, and the voters started realizing that they're not getting the full story on mainstream media. And so they turned to shows like ours. And that really was a fundamental shift that helped Donald Trump win the election, because we were able to, what do they call that? When you preside misinformation, fact check. We were able to fact check the media, fact check the political candidates. We were able, and our side isn't always so kind to our members, right? So like, even when our people stepped out of line, us as content creators were like, and this is what happened with so-and-so, and you guys need to reach out to so-and-so and get them back in line. So they freaked out because they finally realized the shift of them having control has changed. That's why if you go to my website, theambermayshow.com, hit podcast like a pro. And for your audience, David, if they use your name, David, they're going to save money at checkout. So use promo code David at checkout to save money. So theambermayshow.com, search for the tab that says podcast like a pro. And you could be in on this independent content creators, and you don't have to be like David and I and do news commentary. Whatever you're passionate about, if it's classic cars, if it's homesteading, if it's conservation, whatever that is, maybe you want to improve your golf swing and you're a really good golfer and you want to teach others, my course can help you do that and launch successfully. So I went from a built-in radio station, where I had a built-in audience, stopped broadcasting for 9 years, and then had to build my own audience from scratch. So I can show you how to launch your show successfully. And because I like you so much, I'm giving your listeners a discount. So theambermayshow.com, podcast like a pro, promo code David at checkout.
Okay. So now we have, Amber, the brilliant governor of California, and I say that with a big B, and Michelle Obama, who is as authentic as a 2x4, and her brother, and I know little of her brother. I know a lot about Michelle.
Oh, Big Mike.
Doing podcasts, and your thoughts.
I say, if anybody in your audience knows how to get a hold of Newsom and Michelle Obama, send them my way, because I could teach them how to podcast a lot better, because they're getting very good viewerships right now.
Yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm watching some commentary around Michelle's launch, and she's, I don't know, like 25,000 people, and I went, what? 25,000 people actually downloaded or got on her podcast. What could this woman have to say that would interest 25 people, much less 25,000 people? I was just, the only thing I could say is people are just a lot like lemmings anymore. They'll follow anything, because I know for a fact she's not very authentic. She's about as, to use the term, racist as anybody could possibly be. She's just not a good person. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good person at all. And it just amazes me. So,
well, those two are the darlings of the Democrat Party. And so
right.
If that's how you vote, then you're going to like these two people.
Right.
And so I guess those are the people that are following them. But when you think of who they are as individuals, being a first lady and a governor, that's a pretty low number to be getting for viewership. So
yeah,
maybe to some standard it's a lot, but when you think about who they are on the world stage, Joe Rogan pulls in more viewers than both of them.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say Rogan, probably his biggest calling cards is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, the thing I talked about with a friend of mine, I don't know if you know him, Andy Hoosier, he has a show of his own. He said it perfectly. They just don't know how to relate to the everyday people. They just are really out of touch. No. And that is the difference maker. Like, Donald Trump knows how to relate to all of us. Yes, he's a billionaire, but he is so relatable. Even though he may say things that are unpresidential, like not super polished, that's one of the appeals that the American people like about him. The fact that he's not fake about it. Like, he's not super polished. He's like all of us. He knows how to relate. He gets in a dumpster truck. He goes to McDonald's and works at a drive-thru.
Yeah.
He cracks jokes. He's just very relatable. Even though he's a billionaire, he's very relatable.
Well, yeah, and he got that from the construction industry, because when you're hands-on and you're trying to get crap built, you talk to people as people should be talked to. You don't do any kind of political correctness. You probably use a lot of 4-letter words.
Yes, he does.
And they understand it, because you're not sitting up on the 14th floor having some underling do it. You're down there, the guy that's writing the checks, talking to the guy that's pumping concrete, and the guys that are finishing concrete, and the steel workers and all the rest of them. So his authenticity is well earned from where he came from. And I give great creds to his dad for involving him at a young age to where he got that, because he didn't shy away from that scene at all. Right? And it shows now. His persona, you're right, he's a billionaire, but I'm sure he can get down with the steelworkers and talk trash just like anybody else. The cameras weren't on.
And I'll tell you, being on the Reawaken America tour, I got to meet Eric Trump. Not that Eric Trump knows my name, but I did get to meet him. He met a lot of people on the tour, but he's really good friends with my friend Clay. When I was backstage in the media room, but I would hear Eric Trump, on stage, and he's very relatable to people. how he
Right.
would share stories about how he didn't know a lot about politics. He's like, "What's a caucus?" And he's just so natural and open about it. Like he's like, "We didn't know anything about politics." So,
No.
and people relate to that because until things got super bad, a lot of Americans didn't really understand a lot about politics because it's an ugly thing, it's not.
Right.
You see the war, the tariff war between Canada and the United States, and people get so upset because this is how the sausage is made, and when you're not paying attention to politics, you kind of
Right.
don't understand that there's this back and forth that goes. Everyone puffs up their chest at some point, but
Well,
eventually, treaties get made and things settle down. But this is how the sausage is made. But people weren't paying attention because, well,
right. Well,
people don't
the
like
other thing
politics
is
or it's dirty.
I had an attorney on that lives in Alberta, and the rank and file would love to be part of the United States. I'll say that right up front. The other piece of this tariffs that people don't really grasp is there is more fentanyl coming down across the northern border than coming across the southern border. The fentanyl labs in Toronto and Quebec are huge. And part of Trump's tariff issue was to get that stopped.
Mhm.
Now, he probably didn't communicate it as well as he should have, but that's what he was going after. He was
That's right.
going after those fentanyl labs in Toronto and Quebec to get that stuff stopped. And of course, Trudeau didn't talk about it because he's a worthless moron.
Right.
But that's where all of that was coming from. And they did communicate it, but I don't think it really sunk in that that's what he was trying to do because the southern border got all the press, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was even thinking about, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
much, poor little Canada, what could they be doing?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-mm.
no, not at
Well,
all.
also, one thing I appreciate about the tariffs, he's finally making it an even playing field for America. For far too long, we've been taken
Right,
advantage of, and that's the fault of our former presidents. Our
right.
former presidents weren't looking out for the best interests of the American people, and that's
Nope,
their job. That's what they are there to do on the world stage. And, under Clinton, we lost a lot of manufacturing opportunities, and none of the presidents, we've had tariffs on us, but none of the other presidents really reciprocated that. We subsidize the world's health. We pay more in healthcare and we provide money to the world for
right,
pharmaceuticals, and we're paying triple, quadruple what other people are doing. We're giving a military aid to people all over the world, all of our, we're giving so much. And now we're finding all the money laundering that is happening through
right,
USAID, through endless wars. That's why they don't want the wars to end
right.
because of money laundering. They don't care about sacrificing our sons and daughters as long as the payday doesn't come to an end.
Well, Raytheon's building all of those Javelin missiles. They certainly don't want Ukraine to have a peace with Russia because
No.
who the hell's going to be buying our Javelin missiles? And that's just like when Kennedy, and I don't believe Kennedy's motives were evil, but when Kennedy created USAID, USAID destroyed the garment industry in this country. That's what happened that's why your Levi's are made in China and in South America and everything else. They pretty much destroyed the furniture industry in the United States by offshoring all of that. Plus, now you've heard all of the other things that have been going on that Elon Musk's team has uncovered. It's unconscionable. But the part that bothers me the most, Amber, is it's on both houses. It's the Republicans as much as it is the Democrats. The
Oh, yeah.
Republicans are in power right now, and they're keeping their mouths shut. And the Democrats are complaining about it. But all of this crap happened under Republican presidencies and Republican Congresses and Democratic Congresses. It didn't happen on just one side or the other,
Right.
because you can't tell me that somebody can go into Congress as a barista and in 4 years be a multimillionaire.
Oh, yeah.
You can't tell me that somebody that's schlepping drinks, coffee, can all of a sudden go from minimum wage to I don't know how many millions she's worth now. Something's not right. And that's not even looked at. Not even looked at.
Nope.
All they do is listen to her harebrained ideas about this and that. Somebody needs to be looking at her damn tax returns. Right? Because they ought to be eating the same dog food the rest of us are.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially when they preach to us, you got to pay your fair share. I think we're paying more than our fair share. I don't think
Right.
you're paying your fair share.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something doesn't make any sense. You know, and I smell the rat. Let's put it that way.
And to your point, David, I'm kind of pissed. The oversight of Congress, where were they to look into all this? How come no one looked into it?
Right.
And I think you said it perfectly. I think they were getting a payday, or the majority of them were getting a payday. So the fringe ones that wanted to look into it couldn't, because the rest of the people didn't want to, because they didn't want the payday to come to an end. There's always a handful there that I'm sure wanted, like Ron Paul and Rand Paul. They always wanted to look into stuff.
Right.
But the overwhelming majority didn't want to, because if they did, the paydays would come to an end. So it's disgusting. And you're right. It's on both sides of the aisle. And thank God we have a president. We have more America First type people in the Senate and in the House that are willing to work alongside President Trump and Elon Musk. Hopefully, this all comes to an end with the money laundering, because I'm pretty ticked. I mean,
well, Amber, that's only going to happen is if Congress codifies what's going on here.
That's right.
If Elon goes to all of the trouble to identify where the abuses are and Congress fails to act, the next group of candidates that are in there, it's going to be back to business as usual.
That's right. That's right.
So, Elon's doing half the work. The other half of that work needs to be, recession bills, to where, the savings and fixing the way that this is done to where it can't happen again. If they don't do that, then it's all been a waste of time. And the only upside to the whole thing is we're not paying Elon's salary.
That's it.
Yeah, because
technically we're paying Donald Trump, but he's giving all that money away to charity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the big thing that I hope Trump does is the reformation of the Republicans, I hope, has taken root, because they certainly seem to be able to articulate, who they have running the White House briefings, the press briefings, Caroline Leavitt. She's just a little firebrand.
Mm-hmm.
And compared to who was at that podium for 4 years previous, it's like, oh my God, the air does really smell good around here. Because it certainly stunk for the last 4 years. And I think Trump has put together what I would consider a dream cabinet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He has assembled the best and the brightest. And I'll give a big hat tip to John Thune, because he held the Republican Senate to the point where all they had to do was once do a tie break, and that was for Hegseth. But the rest of them got through without any manipulation. It may have been close, 53 to 49 or whatever the hell it was, 47. But it was the simple majority, and some of them were even pretty outstanding. Like Rubio was a slam dunk unanimous vote, and quite frankly, why not? The guy is terrific. But my point being is, I think what Trump has done, which includes Ramaswamy, because I think if he gets elected governor of Ohio, that's going to set him up just like DeSantis. What he's done is he's created one hell of a bench.
And he given us a wonderful VP. So when he steps away in 4 years,
right,
we're going to have an amazing potential president. Hopefully America will vote for him, because he's just so impressive. J.D. Vance.
Now, I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful that the Democrats leave Musk alone, particularly after today. I mean, my God, him going up and snatching those two and bringing them back, it was just a marvel. Just a marvel.
Yeah, I hope they stop burning his Tesla dealerships and Tesla charging stations. I
Yeah.
mean, I saw one video of a man who admitted to buying a Tesla just to destroy it because he was mad at Elon. Like, that really taught him a lesson. Come on, like, really? I mean,
I,
that's how that's how you
I
teach him
wish
a
I had
lesson.
that kind of money to burn.
Apparently,
Because
this
the
guy did.
Teslas aren't cheap.
No,
No, he must have some serious folding money.
must
Well,
be.
let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the deportation, because that's we briefly hit it, but what are your views on what's going on right now?
I am 100% in favor of the deportation. My dad was first generation American. He came here from another country. He wasn't rich. His family was, not super poor, but like they couldn't afford to send my dad to college, and so he met a missionary doctor, and the missionary doctor sponsored my dad and my uncle to come and become citizen, or well, they first came as students because they were going to go to college, and they had student visas, and eventually they became US citizens. So my dad came here correctly. He came as legally he came here. And again, my dad didn't have a lot of money. If my dad can figure a way to come to the United States legally, anyone can do that. And he's not
Right.
the only one. My brother-in-law is from England. My cousins have now come from my dad's country. My grandfather became a citizen and my
Wow.
dad sponsored him. If anyone, I have very international family. Actually, I have one cousin that was adopted so the mother came here somehow. I don't remember. She's Vietnamese and married my mom's cousin, and he adopted her kids. I just don't know how the mom got here. But I mean, I have a very international family. So when I
Right.
say I'm pro deportation,
Right.
I am, because I'm not against people coming to this country. But why does my family have to do it the right way, but you can just come here and
Yeah.
the wrong way? And on top of it, we weren't importing the best and brightest. We're getting Tren de Aragua, MS-13, the Sinaloa cartel. You name the cartel, they were here. They are here. I mean, you see what's happening in England right now with the grooming gangs from the Pakistani men grooming and gang raping young girls. I mean, that's happening here too. Plus the fentanyl from China that's going through the cartels to
Right.
come here. Plus, all of this stuff when they're taking over apartment buildings. Bravo, Tom Homan. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being a strong man and willing to go on the battle lines where it's unsafe and leading the charge to make America safe again when we haven't been safe because the cartels are all over the United States. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Donald Trump, for closing the border down to keep our safe. You are doing your due diligence. You're doing what you should have been doing. All these past presidents had a dereliction of duty because their number one job is to protect the homeland.
Since Eisenhower, yeah. The one thing that I would hope, and I know it's probably mean-spirited of me, and I'll probably have to say a couple of prayers tonight to get forgiveness, but when you see the televised prisoners and how they're being handled in El Salvador, I wish our federal prisons would go down there and take note on how these guys are handled and create a film, because I think that alone would be somewhat of a large deterrent to our own criminal base in this country. If you faced what those people are facing, it is not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. So
yeah, it's
they don't monkey
the
around
thing
down
that gets
there.
me the most about this whole illegal trafficking, David. I talk about it on my show a lot, is the trafficking of kids. There's a
Oh, the
lot of
kids.
kids
Yeah.
from South America being trafficked here. A lot of kids from all over the world being trafficked here. And our
Yep.
U.S. tax money through USAID and other nonprofits that have been stealing money from
Well,
taxpayers. So they petition the congressman to give them money for their nonprofit. The congressmen also sit on these boards, and there's no oversight to see if the money went to the thing that the nonprofit was supposed to be doing.
Well, I would imagine, Amber, that I'm just going to use the term $500,000 goes to the NGO of $1 million grant. And I would harbor a guess where the other 500,000 went.
Well, if you go back to Haiti, there's a video that's been circulating around, and I promoted it on my show. There was a reporter back in, I think it was in 2016. He was asking the president, hey, can you go find out where the money went from the Clinton Foundation? Because they got all this money and only gave Haiti 2% of it.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's higher than.
Well, that's my point. We talked about it earlier. I think that's the reason for the NGOs is a perfect foil for giving somebody humanitarian aid. And oh, by the way, the carrying charges are 30, 40, 50%. Right?
But that's what makes me so sick about the whole thing.
Yep.
It's our taxpayers that are funding child trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
It's hurting children. And so if you close that border, at least our tax money isn't going to harm these kids. I know that Tom Homan's really big on finding all the 300,000 missing kids. Thank God. Donald Trump and Tom Homan have a very strong heart for children.
Yep.
And those two men want to protect the kids. I pray every day for the kids that are being trafficked, that God will rescue them from their traffickers. They'll be reunited with their families. And so the thing that got me the most out of the whole illegal immigration, yes, we're being harmed in the United States by having a cartel. And they're not they're not just, you have to understand who the cartel is. They are a paramilitary organization. It's not like the old gangs from the back in the day. These people have more firearms than you can think of. They have airplanes, they have helicopters, they have more money than you can shake a stick at. They are basically military, paramilitary. I mean, they have so much firepower and money behind them, it's not even funny. And so, yeah, that's really bad. But the heart of the issue for me is the kids. So I'm really grateful that we have two men who stand in office who want to protect the kids. I don't remember any past president really talking about this issue. Donald Trump's the first one that really brought it to my mind. I always thought it was a problem overseas. It's right in our own backyard.
It's right here. Yeah, it's right here. Well, we've been talking to Amber May, who just so happens to be the creator of the Podcast Like a Pro online educational series. And it's been an absolute hoot to have you on the show. It's been great. And I can't thank you enough.
Well, I can't thank you enough. Thank you, David. Remember, if you go to the ambermayshow.com, the tab Podcast Like a Pro, and then use promo code David at checkout, all your audience is going to save some money. I don't want you guys to pay full price. So I look forward to helping you make your own show, your own
There
content.
you go. Well, listen, we'll need to put our heads back together again in a little bit and to see how this continues to shake out. Now that I have your information and everything, I'll stay in touch.
Perfect.
But it's been great. So thanks so much, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaos.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.